Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 8:06 on this last day of April. I can't believe it's the last day. The spring has gone so fast. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 8:35, General Jack Keane. Today is the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. He'll comment on that. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by Hans von Spakovsky. Good morning, Hans.
You know, you got really good at saying my name, Julie.
Gosh. I was telling Hans that 4 years ago when I was first on the show and Larry introduced him, I thought to myself, I will never be able to say that name.
No,
and here I am. Look, it's just rolling off my tongue. Now, joining us now is a much easier name to say, Joe Concha. Good morning, Joe.
Not really. You know, when people call me, it's a solicitation call. It's like, can we talk to Mr. Concha? I'm like, no, he died years ago.
There you go. There you go.
I think Seinfeld did that once. But anyway, how are you guys?
Well, we're doing great. And, Joe, you've got a new book coming out, The Greatest Comeback Ever Inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign. I love the name. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I wanted the title to be longer, actually, Julie. I wanted The Greatest Comeback Ever Inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign, ellipsis, unburdened by what has been. But HarperCollins, the publisher, like, we don't have enough room for that. I'm like, damn
okay,
it. So
fine.
that's that. Look, it is the greatest comeback ever, right? I mean, you know, Jesus, pretty good comeback. Revolutionary War, Red Sox in 2004 over the Yankees. I know, I get it. But if we're talking in political context, and you think about the fact that this guy had 91 felony charges against him, the fact that he was nearly assassinated twice,
yeah.
the fact that we have a hostile media to this day that want to make sure that either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris and goofy Tim Walz were occupying the Oval and wherever the vice presidential person sits. All those things, when you add it all up, and the fact that Donald Trump came back when a lot of people counted him out after January 6th, 2021, it was just seen as maybe it's Ron DeSantis' time. He vanquishes DeSantis. He beats Nikki Haley. He gets the nomination. He has that debate against Joe Biden. Biden's brain turns to applesauce on national television, even though I've been arguing, and you guys have for years, that that's been the case, basically, with Biden's cognitive decline for years. And then from there, 2 weeks later, he's nearly assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania. 2 days after that, he's at the RNC with a bandage on his ear. He chooses J.D. Walls. 5 days after that, Joe Biden drops out of the race, and a couple days after that, Kamala Harris is anointed the Democratic nominee without one vote from the public. I mean, so if you're a journalist or you're a writer like me, you have to chronicle this moment in time because we're never going to see anything like this again. And that's why I wrote the book, and that's why it's doing so well on Amazon and other places you buy books.
Well, Joe, something that struck me about what you're just describing is, it was a great comeback, but it really, not only his comeback this time, but how he won in 2016 shows how totally wrong most of the media, political consultants, all these elitists in New York, Washington, all of whom in 2016 thought there's no way he could ever win. And the idea that he could come back and win again, they were just proven totally wrong, which should make a lot of people question their political abilities.
Exactly, Hans. I mean, you look at 2016. I was a reporter for The Hill, based in D.C. on K Street at the time, and we did an analysis of, or at least a tally anyway, of 59 top newspapers in the country and who they were endorsing. 57 endorsements went to Hillary Clinton and 2 went to Donald Trump. And what did that get Hillary? It got her a set of steak knives and a concession speech. In other words, 57 of 59 papers said, vote for this person, and the public's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. And same thing with 2024. And if you look at the back of the book, it's funny because instead of doing like all accolades about myself, like this is a great book, you have to buy it, I listed all the predictions from Republicans and Democrats as far as how Donald Trump had no shot of winning the 2024 election. Let me read one because I love this guy. Rick Wilson, the principal conservative from the Lincoln Project. Quote, Trump's going to lose. He's going to lose badly. He's going to get wrecked. Okay, very good. Even Nikki Haley, all right, quote, Donald Trump will not win the general election. There will be a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it's going to be Kamala Harris. All right. But then the final prediction is, quote, Trump wins this quite easily. Save the tape. Play it back if I'm wrong. This is how this is going to end. That's me in October 2024, because at that point, I knew there's no way this country is going to elect Kamala Harris and that Donald Trump was on the right side of every major issue that people cared about.
You know, Joe, you are such an excellent media sort of you really analyze.
Guru.
Thank you.
I'm a guru.
That's right. And I'd be interested in your comments on Alex Thompson with Axios got up at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and essentially it's if you don't listen too closely, it sounds like he's criticizing the industry, but in fact he shifted the blame to the White House, making it seem like it was the people surrounding Biden, including his family and staff. And we were just, we just didn't get it. Can you respond to that kind of comment? That enraged me, but I'd be really interested in, is that going to work?
Yeah. Alex, if you're listening, screw you. All right. Because you listened to that speech, and I heard a couple of words in there that I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Stop that. He says, reporters can be deceived by Republican and Democrat administrations. We missed the story. We should have done our job better. No, you didn't miss any story. It was right there in front of you.
Covered it up.
Right. Not even like covered it, because you and I, Hans, Larry, it doesn't matter. When you see a sitting president like Joe Biden shaking hands with the air after a speech, right, doesn't know how to get off a stage, despite the fact that he's been a politician for 50 years doing speeches like that, despite the fact he was like the kid from the Sixth Sense where he could talk to dead people. Like literally, Biden's like, oh, I had a conversation with Francois Mitterrand, who died years ago. And you're like, come on, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. He had a list of reporters that he could only call upon.
Right.
I could go on and on. We forgot the names of his cabinet members. You didn't need a White House source to tell you whether or not Joe Biden was declining. It's been there since 2019. Yeah. So I don't want to hear about how reporters were just misled, because that is not the case.
Joe, look, we're laughing about this now, but what really bothers me is, as you know, in the last 3 months, we've had all these close aides who were working in the White House coming out and admitting that they covered this up and stuff. But I haven't heard anyone say what should be said, which is that not a single one of those individuals should ever work in a position of public trust in government again because of the irresponsibility of what they were doing. The president sits in one of the crucial positions of the U.S. government, sometimes having to make decisions that can get Americans killed, that involve national security, and they covered up his incapability, putting the U.S. and its people in great danger. And I haven't heard anybody talk about the complete irresponsibility of that.
Of course not. And that's a great point, Hans. And the only reason why they wanted Joe Biden to stay in office, not because he was capable, not because he was doing a good job, inflation above 9%, an open border that's now been, what do we have, border crossings down more than 99%, endless wars in Ukraine, crime driving people out of major American cities. I could go on and on as far as how this was the worst president of our lifetimes. But they did it because that kept them in power, right? Jill Biden can run the country. Ron Klain, who looks like Flounder from Animal House, like the older version, that keeps him in power. Trust me, look at a picture and then compare it to whoever played Flounder. I could go, Hunter Biden gets his protection. That's why he wanted his father to stay there. Yeah. So, they did it all for themselves, not for the good of the country. And that's the best part about this, by the way, and I know you guys got to go. When Democrats talk about they have to save democracy, you literally installed a candidate to run for president, Soviet-style, and Kamala Harris, and you literally tried to cover up an old man who had no business being near the Oval Office for many years to keep your own power. That's not democracy. That is deception. That is delusion. And you're right, Hans. You're right, Julie. No one should be anywhere near public, as far as advisory again, as far as after what happened with Joe Biden. No question about it. But Donald Trump's in office right now, and I think things have gone quite well in the first 100 days. I know the polls say differently, but I don't trust the polls anyway, because that told me that Kamala Harris is going to be president. Go figure.
Joe, I do love having a guest on who understands the clock, so thank you.
I was texting Heather. When do I get out?
Done. You're done.
Yeah.
We got to leave it there, Joe. Thanks for coming on, and good luck with book sales.
Oh, thank you. It's going quite well, and it's going to go better because I was on the great WMAL.
And listen, just really quickly, it's the greatest comeback ever inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign. Buy it today. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Hans.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So there is nothing better than a sit-down interview between Trump and a member of the corporate media. And that is what happened yesterday. President Trump sat down with ABC News' Terry Moran for an exclusive Oval Office interview on his 100 days in office. And boy, he did not disappoint. Let's listen to some of these cuts. Cut 25.
Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across the stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Good for him. Good for him. You know, we talk about, just last segment, we talked to Joe Concha about how incredibly irresponsible, just corrupt, and I mean, the corporate media is nothing but an adjunct of the Democrat Party. They would do anything to have kept Biden in power or Kamala. And for Terry Moran to sit there and say, you know, do you think the reputation of the United States, you know, has been affected by your presidency? When Joe Biden is walking around with mashed potato brains, and everybody on the world stage knew it, and everybody knew that there was a cover-up, and everybody knew that Kamala was in on it, and he thinks that the reelection of Trump and what Trump has done, these incredible things that Trump has done in the last 100 days, is the problem. Because it wasn't a question. You know,
no,
it was an insinuation.
It was a statement. And you're right about them being basically the spokesman for the Democratic Party. I mean, that's why everybody they hire is former Democratic administration officials or political consultants or others. But, you know, the other thing besides that great interview with ABC is that the White House put out this terrific list. People need to go and look at it. It's the White House list of news hoaxes in the first 100 days. And they go through and they list like 50 different hoaxes and fake news of the major media, the first one being, of course, CNN.
Yeah.
And the transgender, the millions that the Biden administration spent to study transgenderism in mice. This sounds like a joke.
I know. I should
Is that
laugh.
a Saturday Night Live skit?
I shouldn't laugh.
And CNN came out and said, "Oh, that's fake news. It didn't happen." So the White House found the receipts for it.
You know, it really is. I laugh at that idea of transgenderism mess, but there are so many of these examples. And one of the things that frustrates me as someone who's, you know, on the radio 3 mornings a week is I sometimes can't remember them. The White House has been so good about putting out lists like, what are the accomplishments in the first 100 days? Okay. What are these, you know, top 100 hoaxes? You know, these things are very helpful because, and actually, you know, it's funny, Larry's book, Shameless, I use it as a reference now. If I need to remember, you know, some outrageous thing the media did, you know, I sometimes will go to Larry's book because he wrote about so many of them. And Joe Concha's book will also be like that, a really good sort of list of things, outrageous things that the media has done. But Trump, I will say, seems to have memorized them all because when he sits down with the corporate media, he seems to be able to throw this in their face every time. And it's so great to see someone like Terry Moran squirm. Let's listen to a little bit more. Do we have time? We have a little bit more time. Let's listen to cut 26. This is when Terry Moran, oh my gosh, he's so forgettable. He was talking about Hegseth and whether the president has Hegseth back. Cut 26.
A very good defense, hopefully a great defense secretary, but he'll be a very good defense secretary.
You have 100% confidence in
I don't
Pete
have
Hegseth.
100% confidence in anything. Okay, anything. Do I have 100%? It's a stupid question. Look,
It's a pretty important position.
I have no. You don't have 100%. Only a liar would say I have 100% confidence. I don't have 100% confidence that we're going to finish this interview.
And let's just continue really quickly with cut 26. I just said Terry Moran is forgettable apparently Trump agrees with me. So cut 26A.
I don't have 100% confidence that we're going to finish this interview.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a cut, and I could be wrong. I thought there was a cut where he says something like, "I didn't even know who you were," which is delicious and hilarious. It is. We've got more, but right now it is 8:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 8:36. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. You are listening to O'Connor and Company. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by Hans von Spakovsky. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. Last half hour of the show.
Last half hour. And if you missed the other hours that we're doing, you can always check out our podcast. We are joined right now by General Jack Keane. Good morning, General.
Yeah. Good morning, Julie.
General, today is the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. That is a enormous thing to remember and to mark. It was a pivotal moment that essentially ended the Vietnam War in 1975. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this important day.
Well, I think, one, we honor those who served in that war, certainly, and I was one of them as a infantry paratrooper platoon leader and company commander. And certainly the number of people that were able to get out of the communist stranglehold when they took over the country in 1975. I mean, initially, the emergency evacuation was about 7,000 as a historical record, using a helicopter off the embassy roof. And the reason for that is the air base had already been shelled by North Vietnamese, so there was fear of airplanes being killed with people in them. But eventually 800,000 people fled. I think about somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple 100,000 came to the United States after the fall in the years following, and certainly they have added significantly to the United States as another group of immigrants who came to the country seeking freedom and helped to make the country better. But
yeah,
the other thing is it reminds me. I mean, as a military person, we had the wrong strategy for 3 years under Westmoreland. We were fighting an unconventional army and an insurgency, which was really the driver. We were doing that with conventional military tactics because we were a European-based army essentially at the time, and that went on to 68, and by then we started to lose political support, and we put Creighton Abrams in as the general to succeed him, and he turned the strategy upside down completely. He put in play a counterinsurgency strategy. And by 71 is a documented historical fact. The Viet Cong insurgency was defeated.
Right.
But by then there was no political support left for the war. That's the reality of what we faced. And in 74, after the peace agreement in 73 that Henry Kissinger fostered, which was a fundamentally flawed peace agreement, it was an immediate ceasefire, U.S. withdraw all troops in 73. But we left Vietnamese troops, multiple divisions in South Vietnam. As soon as the peace treaty was signed and we began to pull our troops out, we had 60 days to get them out of there. As soon as those troops got out of there, the Vietnamese attacked in 73, and we stopped it using air power. We still had advisors there.
Yeah,
and then if you recall, the Congress intervened and passed a law saying no more military aid.
Right.
In 1974 to the South Vietnamese. They attacked again in 75, and they went all the way to Saigon. There was no air support for the ground forces. Yeah.
I mean, and Kissinger, he knew. I mean, it's come out that he knew that the North Vietnamese would not abide by the peace treaty. It was just a face-saving way of getting the Americans out. But, the question I wanted to ask you is, look, I hate to admit I'm old enough that I watched the Vietnam War nightly on Walter Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley. And I remember when Saigon fell, and I never thought we would see that kind of a humiliating withdrawal again, and yet we saw it again in 2021 in Afghanistan.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And our President Biden said that there would be no repeat of what took place in Saigon. Never, if you recall his reaction to a question. And actually, what took place in Kabul was considerably worse, and we all witnessed it. And those were results of strategic mistakes that led to that. Certainly, an unconditional surrender with the Taliban, no ceasefire, no peace agreement, no negotiations with the government. Those were the conditions that were passed up by the Biden administration. And when he said a date certain and no conditions whatsoever, I mean, he didn't even set the conditions. I'm going to need 6 to 8 months. I'm willing to leave, but I need 6 to 8 months to make certain I get everybody out of here that needs to get out of here in an orderly, safe fashion, or I'm not cutting the deal. I mean, I think he should have had a ceasefire. I think he should have forced negotiations. I think they should have forced a peace agreement as conditions. But even that minimal condition, was not put in place. Yeah,
General.
These are. Go ahead.
No, I just want to close by asking, do you think that the Vietnam War is being taught correctly in schools? You've got some polling that says, 44% of adults polled say the Vietnam War was not justified. Even Vietnam vets, in many cases, say they're not justified. Still, a majority say it was justified, but it's close. And I'm wondering what you think of how this war was, how it's being taught to children and to youth today. I think there's sort of a lot of misunderstanding about what happened in the Vietnam War.
I don't have a good feel for it, to be honest with you. But given American history has been so distorted, and there are think tanks here. I was over at Hudson last summer giving a keynote because they were teaching American history and American values to students because they weren't getting it in a university experience, and they put together a 6-week program. So it doesn't surprise me, having participated in that war and studied it a lot after. And I certainly realize the United States military played a role here. As I indicated, we had the wrong strategy for 3 years. But many times when we start wars, the United States is on the wrong foot, and we recover from it because we're very adaptable, and that's our history. We did that in Iraq as well. But going back to the point of your question, I mean, as a participant in it, and I saw it up close. I mean, I was part of close combat forces dealing with this every single day, and we felt a certain nobility in what we were doing. And I don't use that word lightly because we were watching the Viet Cong in particular and what they were doing, raping and murdering innocent South Vietnamese citizens on a regular basis, going into villages and just burning them to the ground and raping the women. And it was horrific. And we stopped that by killing them and capturing them, and we felt good about that. Yeah. And we saw up close what was happening. We did have a security agreement with South Vietnam to protect them if they asked, and that started with advisors and led to combat troops. I think there was ample justification for what we were attempting to do there. But as I said before, if we had put the right strategy in place from the beginning and brought this to a reasonable end in a few years with some political stability, we would have had a different answer.
General, as always, we thank you for your service and thank you for coming on today to tell us about the fall of Saigon and remind us all of the great service that you and your fellow soldiers did way back then. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Always good talking to Julie and good talking to you, Hans.
Thanks.
Thank you. Got more. It is 8:45. I always feel bad for these Hollywood stars who don't have children, and then they all say, oh, it was my choice. And this is the case with Heather Graham. She's kind of were you a big Heather Graham fan when you were?
No.
No? Yeah. Well, she's lovely, but she claims that she's happy she doesn't have kids. But it's kind of sad when you read the article, you realize she has no relationship with her family, her mom or dad. She's sort of critical of them. She literally has no contact with them. And sometimes when I read these things, I generally think, children make people happier. People should have lots of kids. It's a wonderful thing. But then when I read about broken people like this, I'm thinking maybe they're better off not having kids. And she can go on and say that it was her choice Not sure it was, but kind of a sad story about her.
Well, it is, and the reason, I mean, when you read the story, it's like, well, maybe the reason she doesn't want to have kids is because of her own family life as a kid.
I think that's more likely. It's 8:52.